Hello there. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. It's a little dreary today. It's a little dreary, but that's okay. We got good light. We got good natural light. I'm still fighting off this RSV. No, not the translation, the virus. So, there's probably going to be some editing with coughing and that sort of thing. But we're going to do this. I'm actually feeling well enough, like I can get enough oxygen for long hauls. And here comes one of those coughs. You're probably going to see me smoking a pipe as well, but that's only because the latest pipe I received, someone said they look forward to seeing me enjoying it a video, so that's going to be out there. But that out of the way, today we're going to review a book that was sent to me by a Patreon that it had slipped my mind. I knew it existed, and I just let it slip. I get that happens sometimes. And what's cool about this book is it's a reprint, but sometimes a reprint is a really cool thing. So I'm going to have a staring match with Patches real quick, and while I do that, we're going to roll the intro and we will get into the episode. What you doing, baby? Welcome back, everybody, to Orthodox Review, the most uneducated educational program here on the internet today. I am your host, the guy with 1.5 thumbs, Raphael, and I'm so very, very pleased that you could make it today. Okay, so that took a little effort, but we're going to get there. So, as stated in the intro, today we're doing a review of Orthodox Prayers, Hours, and Typika, which is actually a reprint of the 2008 edition of these two paperback bad boys. And this right here, this was my very first prayer book back in 2012, and it's for a glued binding, it's holding up pretty well. It's been beat to death, single color, but this is a superior version, and we're going to get into why. And we're going to go top down, and I'm going to show you some close-up shots. It's going to be really cool, because there's a lot of information that reviewing this book has to bring about. So before we get into the review, huge thanks to Travis, Patreon Travis, who sent this book, because we got into a conversation over on Patreon, because that's a thing that happens. And he asked me about it, and I was just waking up, and I was like, oh. And then I was like, Aorist Press, yeah, and please and thank you. Because what's cool is this press is run by the editor of the St. Tikhon's edition. And this is blessed by Bishop Mark. And it is, so it's, everything's cool about it. Let's get into a little bit of history about him quick, and then we're going to talk about the binding, because this opens up a really good conversation about book binding and what can be done domestically for what kind of money. I do believe this was printed domestically. I don't think it's an import because of the price and because of the type of binding it is. So this is what we would call a hybrid binding, which means that it's glued, but it's also sewn, but not in the way that a traditional sewn binding would be, where it's like sewn through and then you have a cloth ribbon that's holding it together. So instead, the individual sections, and I will have to get a picture to show you close up. Hopefully there's one on the screen now. So the individual bits are sewn, okay, and I've got pictures of the threading. And then those are notched and then pressed together and glued like a perfect bound book would be, like a paperback, or like these old versions were. Okay? And so what it does is it gives you a very firm binding. But as you can see, this is on a par with, and it's very thick paper, so it's even stiffer than usual. The Pocket Prayer Book and Psalms from Jordanville, that kind of paperback, where it's actually just kind of a hard cardstock that has been glued into what is essentially a very tough hardback. So that's a peekaboo. I can see you. So it's sturdy. It's taking a little while to break in, but it is breaking in, and that's pretty cool. And the pages are not like coming loose or anything. And I will mention that the original from 2008, I've obviously abused this to no end, and I've never lost a page, although I'm sure if I kept at it, I would. So I don't think you have anything to worry about with the binding on this book, and the cover is stiff. I mean, it's hard. It's sort of this soft-ish paper. I don't know what material it is. It doesn't say. It's a paper derivative material. But either way, these things are built to take a licking and keep on ticking. So the editor, Sergei Arapov, is the creator of this revised liturgical English that this translation uses. And up until, the past, I don't know, half a decade, that was the English used in all of St. Tikhon's publications and roughly used across the OCA and maybe Akron and a few others. And so when we get into the translation, it's going to be interesting because there's actually an entire Psalter translation in this revised liturgical English that was supposed to come out back when these two came out, which was kind of cool, but never did, and is actually forthcoming. It has a copyright date of this year on their website. Pre-orders are up with no money down, so hopefully we'll see one of those sooner rather than later, because Sergei is no spring chicken. And then in editing this new omnibus version, co-editor is Daria Cortez. So thank you to Daria and Sergei for bringing this to life, because it's something I kind of always wanted. I will say that there was that geek crack. Actually, I would have preferred a fully sewn binding on something like this, much like the Divine Liturgy books that were republished around the same time as the 2008 editions. I think those were actually from 2000 or 2001 something. So I could go get it out of the closet, but I'm not. So yeah. And so, okay, so with all that mess out of the way, we can get into what's actually in the book, because there are things about this particular version of the book that I love. By the way, I'm bringing the old cup back, folks. I mean, the Fuzzlord Effects pedal sticker was all nice and fine, but you just can't beat the Theotokos when you're drinking black coffee on a Monday morning. Chock full of flavor! Okay, so let's get into this. And the hours in Typika, I'm going to tell you right now, it's the hours in Typika. It's arranged for normal use with all the clergy stuff in there, but with notes for without clergy. But what's great is you get all the Troparia and Kontakia for the week, for the year, selections from the Manaean in there. But what really shines in the daily prayers is in the preparation for Holy Communion. You have the 3 canons, and about 5 years ago, I'm going to keep talking to you while I'm flipping pages that I should have marked. So 5 years ago, when we did the initial first few episodes of the show, when I was like super excited about rebuilding my prayer book collection and everything, and we did the new St. Tikhon's book, and we pulled this out and talked a little bit about it. And the one thing that's missing from that you find in the rule in ROCOR for monastics in particular is the rule of the 3 canons for preparation for communion. And there she blows. And what this is, now these 3 canons you find separately in the prayer book as it is now. So you have the canon to Our Sweetest Lord Jesus, the canon to the Theotokos, and the canon to the Guardian Angel. And there's a way of reading them along with the akathist in tandem, all together, where you read the first ode of each and the third ode of each, and so on and so forth. And it's part of your preparatory business in the evening prior. And again, it's a monastic rule, and it's a rule that I had to follow when I was at the monastery. And I had a leg up on many of the monks there because no other prayer book has the canons codified the way this one does. And so back when I was in my very first few years of being an Orthodox Christian, and up until I returned from the monastery, so the first 4 or 5 years, I was reading the 3 canons, mostly. But anyway, so for people that think they're like, oh, I'm so monastic and here in my armchair, get a copy of this and do the three canons, the canon of repentance and the canon in preparation. So that's 5 canons altogether in one night. You're going to be sitting there for a few hours. And some people are into that, and good for you, and God bless you if you can do it. But don't fool yourself into thinking that like you're an armchair monastic if you're not really ready to commit to this. But it is the coolest thing about this prayer book that I love, that it's on hand for people. Now, as you can see, just from me opening it, the printing is really nice. So now we're going to go top down, and we're going to talk a little bit about the printing and a little bit about the usage of the book, what's in the book, etc., etc., etc. So let's do that. Okay, here it is. I just want to give you an overview of like the construction and how it's printed versus the old one. And of course, you will notice first and foremost at the title page, excuse me, a far cry from the old one. Here we have ISBNs, and you can see right away that the newer edition is a far nicer printing. Now, I always liked the older printing because of the bold and clear typeset that they use, typeface. We have the same thing in the new one, although it's not quite as bold, but it's so incredibly readable. And now we have these beautiful new red borders versus the old black ones, and just this simple bit of putting the red and black there that contrast just makes it so much more beautiful. And although you really can't see it on camera, there is a little bit of bleed through in the old one, whereas the new one, it's a much tougher paper. Of course, these old ones are smooth from years of use. So with that out of the way, and man, you can see all the things I've done to this poor old one. I love this prayer book. I've actually gone back to using this one full time now. So really quick, we're going to go through the table of contents because it doesn't have anything in here that's like surprising outside of those 3 canons that we talked about. But what it doesn't have, which you find more and more in more modern prayer books, is like all those extraneous prayers, for various things throughout the day. Whereas here you really only have like, prayers during the day being like, before work, after work, that sort of thing. And so outside of that, you don't have anything out of the ordinary. You do have lovely little embellishments on it though, where you have like a little bit of rubrics, reverences. For those of you that do use the current St. Tikhon's book, if you go out and get this one, you'll notice there's a few things that are different in the layout for the morning prayers. And the one thing that the Russian Church still does, and that, this being an extension of the Russian Church, should do, the prayers for the living and the departed come right after the morning prayers, as they should. So when you get into the 3 canons, it tells you right here, that it's from the monastic rule. And then when you get to preparation for Holy Communion, it's pretty standard. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Here you have the canon for preparation, which is usually done the evening before as part of Compline, which I forgot to mention, small Compline is something that I think should still be in all prayer books. I don't care. That's just me. And then you have the hours in Typika, which is just nice to have around. Like, because not a lot of people want to carry like a larger book like the Anthologian with them. So this is good to just have like those canonical hours without, matins or vespers in them. Now, here is a great opportunity for us to take a look at the Psalm translation that we find in the Revised Liturgical English, and it is, for all intents and purposes, a decent translation, because unlike the St. Tikhon's translation we have now, which is beautiful and I still love it to death, this is its spiritual predecessor. Like, this is what was going to be, but wound up not being, but will be despite that with the upcoming edition. Psalm 50 is usually the one that everyone goes to for an example, but I've found that that's just it's too common. So the third hour, you got Psalm 16, 17, depending on your number. Hear my righteousness, O Lord, and attend to my cry. Give ear to my prayer from lips free of deceit. Let my judgment come forth from before thy presence, that mine eyes may behold the things that are just. Just flows really well. So I'm looking forward to that. The Typika, of course, in here will give you instructions for inside and outside of Lent, for with and without a priest, which is nice. And then you have selections from the Pentecostarian, the Manean, Triodian, the Troparian Kontakia for the day, for Monday through Sunday, and then, of course, the Sunday in the 8 tones. And so it's all in all, this is like the most utilitarian prayer book with hours and Typika that you could possibly hope for. The paperback versions, the dimensions are the same for the actual text block. And actually, if you put them up against each other, the newer version is slightly thicker, and that's only because they use slightly thicker paper. It's not because the page count is any different. And, all right, whatever. You can't get this anymore, but you can get this. It's $40, which, you're paying for a well-made domestic prayer book, but you're also going to pay like $11 in shipping, so be prepared for that. But at any rate, it's either way. It's cool if you're a collector, or if you've got a ratty old copy of the original and you want to replace it, kind of like people do with Little Red. This is a good way to go, and I'm all for supporting small printers in Pennsylvania. So with that out of the way, on behalf of Patches the Murder Cat, who I've come to calling my wrestle cat, because we wrestle a lot, as can be seen. I listen to Castle Rat and do a little wrestle cat. Anyway, yeah, so on behalf of her and myself, thank you all so much, and we're going to be getting into a great episode next week. So stay tuned. Thank you, patrons, and channel members and everyone, for continuing to keep the ball rolling. And don't forget to go to church, say your prayers, and remember God. Thump, thump, God bless. We'll see you all soon.